one. That Gilgamesh stat definitely jumps off the page at me. And if I'm the Solar Scarabs, that might be one of the first places I'm looking.
It gives me 2 numbers immediately. I guess 3 realistically, thinking back on the Big Man Ting's Tiamat combination that is also very deadly. The Scarabs, if I'm looking at them, I don't want to see them lock in the Tiamat. It has not really been treating them that well. But at the same time, I don't want them to give it up. So if it is open, you almost have to first pick it for Baronic.
Right.
And it's not necessarily Baronic doesn't play this as well. It is just the way the team has formed doesn't tend to play around that Tiamat as well.
Right. If they're early game, Tiamat's not particularly early game, so Tiamat doesn't fit that.
Takes a little too long to get online, right?
Right.
And this is actually something, the Kings banned the Yemoja there. I don't think you need to. Bobby's got an 11% win rate this year on Yemoja. Let him have it. You're going to win the game. Like, it's an 11%er off the bat if they first pick it. And so I think that's a god that they should be able to play around with. But it's also, okay, well, if we ban the Yemoja, we can then choose what gods we let through outside of that. I think it'd be awesome if Genetics gets the Yemoja. But you mentioned it. He's been loving the Terra a lot lately. You don't necessarily need to shoehorn yourself into a guaranteed support pick.
Well, Morgan Le Fay is open. That's the pick that is jumping off the page to me. But Fenrir is the first pick for the Scarabs. And look, if you're asking me which god I think is stronger, I think it's probably Morgan Le Fay. But with the identity of the Solar Scarabs and the identity of the Kings and how this match is likely to play out, I think that this pick shows a lot of maturity from the Solar Scarabs. I think this plays into their game plan better than Morgan Le Fay probably would. And I love it. I think that this is a very intelligent first pick.
It's the 4th ban, I guess, that you can get early on while still being a good pick for Scream. It doesn't necessarily strip anything away from yourselves while still being one of the best setups. I mean, you go back to, Phase 1 playoffs? Like, the Dragons, the Bolts, everybody is trying to first pick this Fenrir.
Yep.
And it is treated Twig really well. There's a reason it's a big ban up against the Kings. The thing that I'm noticeably missing right now is there's no Artemis on the board.
Yes, Artemis is still available, and the Kings do not decide to take it. The Solar Scarabs, when they played earlier in the week, were banning Artemis in their first pick slot, both games up against Tartarus Titans. We'll see if they're willing to take it here. The Kings do not. They take Rom instead and lock in that duo lane, interestingly enough.
And I have to say, first off, Ymir is nuts. I can't remember. I'm going to look him up just to make sure I have it. I know Genetics has a ridiculous win rate on this pick.
No surprise.
But I also think that it works not just well with the Kings, but well with Rom. Already you're getting aggressive. He's 4-2 for the Ymir, but the Rom pick has been a little more eye-opening to me as of lately because it's got good clear in the early game, so you're pretty safe on that. He might not have the best escape and survivability in the world, but he's got some escape, and that's better than some hunters like an Artemis. But it really is the ult that I think has been the key because it's kind of that fresh reminder. Not only is it good for stealing objectives, cue Season 2 Snoopy highlights, it's also really good in the beginning of a fight for, say, targeting a Morgan Le Fay and making her half health so she can't do anything that engagement.
Morgan Le Fay and Fafnir are the picks for the Solar Scarabs, so they do not go with the Artemis. I think a team locking in Morgan Le Fay Artemis in their top 3 would have been eye-opening to say the least, but they don't go that direction. And it was one eclectic mage that was hovered but not locked. Instead, it's Hel, a different one that we don't see very often. Only her 7th game that she's going to be played, but Gore, that win rate looked awfully good. I think 83% across those 6 games.
And I want to say most of those have been Paul, because we were talking about that on Waiting Room, so it's nice to see the Kings pulling it in, but the Kings notoriously have been kind of leaning on those more eclectic picks lately.
And Variety played this Hel when they played earlier this week, so we don't even know if this is necessarily for Big Man.
And honestly, I kind of don't want it to be. Variety looked really good. Variety got a 5-man cleanse. Granted, as of right now, there's no need for a 5-man cleanse because there's only one form of heavy CC on Fenrir and one form of heavy CC on Fafnir, but still, knowing that you have that capability in the solo lane and that you're confident to lock it in before you see a warrior, a guardian, whatever on the other side, I think speaks wonders, especially going up against Sot, who loves playing, your Cucullins, your King Arthurs, and being aggressive.
Interesting that the Scarabs have certainly done their homework. They thought of the same thing that we did, that Variety played this Hel more recently. But they double ban mages in Raijin and in Merlin and leave open a couple of junglers potentially here for Captain Twig. Serket comes to mind as something that can be that early game. Robin is something that he's played. So he's got some options still, but maybe Big Man, I mean, this is where the Kings could really flex that flex pick potential. you could make the Scarabs have wasted 2 bans, put this Hell in mid, and pick a warrior for variety, and all of a sudden, you're feeling good.
Yeah, it's the flexibility, right? It causes so much trouble, because nothing's going to feel worse for you if you're the Scarabs here than if you just invested all of that and then it's Big Man playing this Hell anyway, right? Because now you're just opening yourself to a world of hurt. There's so many top-tier solo laners still available. Granted, Odin taken off the board, Osiris, who's been a little more jungle lately, maybe controls that. The Hera speaks wonders, though. This is the other one that I was actually thinking of when I said more eclectic picks.
Yeah.
It's the Hera, because who else is playing Hera and who else is succeeding with her other than the Kings?
Dardez, the only other one who's played Hera so far. It's just been, I believe, Dardez and Big Man Tings who have played it. Now again for Big Man, and I've said that I love it up against the Morgan Le Fay. You drop Argus, she goes,
bye-bye.
Stop. Like, can you not? I can't get this guy off me. And Artemis still open right now. The Kings called the bluff here from the Solar Scarabs. They don't ban the Artemis away from Stewart.
I wanted to, because it felt so weird, right? Like, it's like, man, you first off, you top 2 Rom of all people. He's been kind of falling on the tier list. Netroid 6-1 on Rom. He's been winning overwhelmingly with this pick. I don't think he's too worried specifically about what Stewart has to offer. And I mean, we saw like the Titans when they were going up against them. Cyclone Spin played that Chernobog, was constantly ulting just Stewart to like just isolate him, try to solo him, things like that. I think they're recognizing again a potential open weakness here that the Scarabs have, and trying to, instead of combat the jungle where Scream is, where they know it's going to be strong no matter what, combat maybe a weak link that they can definitely get a good advantage over.
Well, it's no Artemis for Stu. It ends up being the Heimdall, and maybe that Ymir wall seems to be the problem that they don't want to deal with. Also, Argus pretty good against the Artemis.
Front line for their team. I think that, sure, you've got a ton of damage, you've got some additional effective HP thanks to variety on this Hell, and effective CC immunity thanks to the cleanse as well, but it's a high execution composition. If the Kings pull ahead and they reach that late game a little bit more quickly, sure, they can absolutely blow the Scarabs out of the water, but I'm not sure that I share all the same concerns that the desk did. It's just a very difficult draft to execute on because the dive potential of the Solar Scarabs is good, and how many good dive targets are there? Hell, yeah, you want to get onto her. Mercury, if you can, that's pretty nice too. Even Hera, once that ultimate's down, is susceptible.
Captain Twig, leap, Scream, brutalize, immediately canceled out. One more basic is all it's gonna take. Scream strikes first blood. Captain Big Man Tings tries to fight back, but not gonna be enough.
Man, I like that from Scream. That's a checkmate situation in the invade attempt, and Big Man Tings secures that for his own team. And the Solar Scarabs, or Scream in particular, has made a very clear decision. Wants to just play annoying. Another annoying attempt here from Inbound may have cost him his life.
Good wall from Genetics. Will block off the path from Inbound. He's trying to run, trying to find an escape route. Stewart is here, but so is Captain Twig. And it looks like Inbound may be dead to rights. I say that, but he's going to get a nice little leap away there.
Yeah, Twig, you gotta hit those, bud. You gotta hit those.
So is Captain Twig. Looks like Inbound may be dead to rights.
On the map, it's so hard to argue against how strong Oracle Harpies have been. Not just now, but since release. I think these teams are doing a great job of contesting them so far. Man, Captain Twig is not allowed to play the game right now. Everywhere he goes, he's getting bullied.
It's going to be a heal. Blinking from Solar Troll. Trying to get some damage. Captain Twig, but Captain Twig is out for the moment, gets rooted in place. Warcry is available, not quite enough damage. Big heals coming out of Variety, and a rotation from Genetics may have also just saved his life. Scream is here, has the Ragnarok, has the leap available, but he hasn't chosen his target yet. It may be setting sights towards the blue, or get somebody to walk forward.
And it is the blue buff pulled by the Camelot Kings. 2 versus 3, not feeling too good about their odds are Scream, so instead backs up. And, well, sure, he has Ragnarok, but no great targets. I mean, CC immunity inside of every single one of their item slots. Speeds available on everybody on the side of Camelot Kings. Scream kind of has to wait for his opportunity or burn the beads himself, and if he goes in there, he probably dies.
Argus dropped by Big Man Tings. Veronic on the run, no help to get him out of there, as Argus will just chase him down. The shots from Netroid will help, but Big Man Tings gets the kill.
The early game right now.
I mean, when you're mid, you're a carry, and we'll even call this Hell one of your carries as she waits towards the late game, but hold that. Sonic Boom in the right lane. Solar Troll gets thrown back to the collections of Variety. A little bit more damage necessary. Captain Twig will grab it immediately into the Ragnarok. Variety doesn't have the cleanse available. Captain Twig will fall under the tower and a trade out for Scream.
Tough one for Captain Twig. Variety uses the cleanse early on to avoid the Cullen ultimate for both him and Captain Twig, and it was good, but does leave them susceptible to a Ragnarok. And now Genetics finally on the rotation over, spots out inbound, and says, look, let's pick up the blue buff.
For inbound versus Genetics, Genetics is across the map, and Scream is now over on the opposite side of the map, looking for Netrioid, but may have just walked over a ward. Netrioid's going to know he's there. He's still going to walk towards that jungle. Stewart will invade the Harpy. Netrioid continues walking forward, but he's got the rest of his team on rotation. Scream takes the purple buff away, but Genetics and inbound in sight. Sonic Boom into the backline. Ragnarok from Scream to run away, but Ragnarok's not going to help inbound. He's caught out in the middle of 4, and Netrioid will get the last basic.
Oh man, the Camelot Kings sprung a trap card on the Solar Scarabs trap card. The Solar Scarabs were starting to posture over there.
Wall from Genetics. And inbound looking for a target, maybe Netrioid, who's stepping a little far forward. The rest of the Camelot Kings will respond by taking the Pyromancer. And inbound not stepping too far forward. Netrioid's doing fine over on that left side. Meanwhile, the Kings do take Pyromancer, but a response immediately to Gold Fury.
They have to be worried about Netrioid, who has the snipes available, and Big Man Ting's already hovering on the outskirts.
Gold Fury to half. Big Man Ting's caught out by Scream, who uses the Ragnarok. Big damage comes out of Big Man. Aegis comes through. Argus as well. That's going to be 1 kill, but Netrioid returns the favor with a double kill of his own, taking down Scream with the snipes. SOT and Stewart running away. The Gold Fury leashed back up to full, but they're still looking for more. Captain Twigs and Genetics chasing down Solar Troll. It's going to get the beads off the freeze.
Slow isn't there from Genetics, and now Variety and Netrioid finally rounding the corner, try and keep the chase up, but it is at the end of the day a 2-for-1 trade in favor of the Camelot Kings, and with Variety still hovering here, it's just Captain Twig low HP, and Variety, well, he's playing hell, and he's level 13, so just a couple of heals gonna put him right back up, and Rage already has 2 stacks on it, so you know this Gold Fury is getting shredded. Camelot Kings picked that one up. Pyromancer has spawned on the other side, and Solar Scarabs should be able to pick that one up uncontested, but the larger objectives are still going to be available. Fire Giant still on the map, and Oni Fury going to rejoin the map in just a couple of moments.
And we'll see where the Camelot Kings shift their focus towards. They heard the Pyromancer go down, so you see a few rotate over just to make sure no one's doing the Fire Giant, though they did have a ward. Instead, they'll be the ones who turn towards the Fire Giant. Pyromancer's down. Everybody had already back to base. Fire Giant's getting shredded. Argus dropped. In the process with it, they're just going to get this Fire Giant. No one from the Scarabs able to get there in time. Solar Troll a little bit late to the party. Has to use the beads from the dash out of Captain Twig. He's stuck in the middle of 5. Scream jumps in as well. But Solar Troll is going to be the one to fall. Dragon comes out from inbound. They're able to take down Twig with the help of Baronic. Now Netrioid is under fire, well under half health. Leap in from Scream gets another big stun. Netrioid running, but Scream able to take him down.
Good wall from Genetics. Make sure that Scream doesn't walk out of there for free, but Stewart and Inbound are on the chase.
Too much damage coming out of Stewart. They'll take down another Variety. Manages to find Baronic in the midst of it. Inbound very low. Big Man Ting takes him out for the double kill. Stewart, the last man left alive. Double kill for Stewart. Now fighting against the solo laner, but Variety will end it all and get a deicide for the Kings.
Solar Scarabs, though, gotta give props where they're due, are able to at least strip away Fire Giant from 4 members of the Camelot Kings. At the end of the day,
with Variety, the sole man left with the Fire Giant. The sights are now set towards the Oni Fury. Vision control, as far as on the Fury, goes in favor of the Kings, though there is a ward by inbound that got set just earlier. Everybody's starting to group around, seeing who's going to pull the trigger. We did see Tier 1 tower fall as well. Variety was able to pick that one up off the back end of that bloodbath at the Fire Giant. Gold Fury started. Solar Troll and inbound, the ones tanking it up. Sonic Boom being charged by Twig, but not going to pull the trigger just yet. Inbound well under half health, and he is shredded instantly. Argus dropped onto 2 players. Stewart has to run, but a massive wall by Genetics stops him. Sonic Boom in the back line. Captain Twig finds 2. He's on the run. Sigil saves his life for a moment, but Baronic will ultimately fall to Variety.
Genetics uses the wall and pins 3 members of the Solar Scarabs against the Oni Fury itself. You do not see that often. That is exclusive Genetics tech, as far as I'm concerned, and it completely changes the face of that engagement. 3 members dead on the Scarabs. Bobby dies essentially in slow motion, looks like, leaps in, finds the disarm, eats a freeze from Genetics, and dies immediately off of it like a train wreck. Could not look away. finally rejoins the realm of the living just in time.
Gold
to
lead,
watch
and that's
that.
only going to get worse now that Sony Fury comes through. We get a nice little replay, and as you
thank
said,
you.
it was a freeze immediately into death. Too much damage on the back end from Big Man Tings
God
with the
bless.
polymorph, with the clap, and then Argus dropping in the midst of all of it. Just complete and utter chaos against the Scarabs.
Bro, the Camelot Kings clearly loaded in with an inside agent here, Giant itself, and I like this call. If Fire Giant goes the way of the Kings, I'm not sure how the Scarabs are going to defend against all this sustain.
Inbound has to leap away. One more CC, all it could take for him to go down, just like last fight. No beads available for him. Sigil dropped. SOT in the back. Gets a two-man ult. Still looking for more on the chase. Transformation out of inbound. Gets a stun on Genetics. Leap in from Scream. He's going to pick up
Great
one.
wall.
Necroid falls down. The wall is good, but not enough. Save the Hunter. Captain Twig uses the Sonic Boom, but doesn't find anything off the back end.
Man, Scream is doing so much for his team right now. Every single one of these picks is thanks to the Ragnarok. And well, I got to talk about how hard it is to find Ragnarok, by the way. 5 beads and a hell on the other side means that you have to be very choosy with your targets. Somehow Scream always choosing right.
Scream uses one lead, but still has the Brutalize to get away. Genetics at half. Big wall's going to lock
no.
Baronic in place and nowhere to go and no leaps. No way around the wall. Baronic falls, and maybe more on top of that. Stewart manages to get to the Bifrost, but he's surrounded by 3. One more basics, all that's needed. Big hammer, and another stun comes from Scream to temporarily save his life, but it was only temporarily. Scream running from Big Man Tings. Tings just needs one more cooldown. He'll use Argus to chase him, but not able to close the gap, and fortunately at least SOT all alone, and they pick up a double kill.
Scream overstays a little bit too long, trying to make sure Fire Giant doesn't go the way of the Kings, and instead cost him his life and cost him the life of Baronic. And now the Camelot Kings primed to look at the Titans.
They're going to head straight to the throne room. It's only inbound on defense against 5, and there's not much that a lone Dragon Man can do. Titan will go down inevitably with inbound falling in the process. 18-8 end it. The Camelot Kings with a big win for their first game of the set.
Ymir is so good at slowing things down, but then you also transitioned beautifully into just variety, period. Like, just the way he played with this team, like you had mentioned, I think coming off of that set, the front line that Variety is able to provide, not just in terms of damage that Hell has some ridiculous outputs for and Variety capitalized on, but the healing, that cleanse right there. I mean, it opened up so much to the point I was saying I wish we had gotten a double deicide, because I'm not sure that we've ever seen one in the SPL. I think we've seen like one competitive one maybe in the SCC, but even then it's such a bizarre area to be in. But there's so much to try and counter here if you are the Scarabs. I mean, you're trying to get aggressive. Let's say you're Scream, you jump in. Cool, now there's a wall, there's a freeze, there's something waiting for you. There's a heal on the other side. And just slowly but surely, they use Big Man Tings and this Hera early on to guide themselves right into the late game where they needed where Twig could really start to pop off. I think he was like 0-2 at one point, ends 2-3. Netroid goes 4-2. I mean, really gets to kind of step it up towards the latter half. And I like what the Scarabs had to offer. Unfortunately, the Kings put the gloves on and, again, came at it at the appropriate angle.
Scream got off. See if that's the adjustment the Scarabs make, as we are ready to go now for game number 2. Stick in that first pick position. Remember, that's the Scarabs' decision on where they want to go, so they hold onto that first pick slot. And the other thing that I'm taking away from picks and bans in game 1, Gore, Artemis not banned by either team.
Yeah.
Not picked by either team. Rom and Heimdall were their options instead. Somewhat telling, I think, if I'm the rest of the league looking at how this set goes way.
And I think and looking back towards the Scarabs' last set, we had a Rom game, and we had an On Her game. We didn't have Artemis games. Granted, Artemis was banned by the Scarabs that time around, and so maybe that's just something Stewart isn't as confident on, and maybe that's something that needs to be worked on for them. And, I mean, if Netroid, because Netroid locked in, it was Ymir Rom for their top 2.
Right.
I think it is something that they are more than happy to go back to over and over again if they know that they can take that matchup.
Exact same so far for the Solar Scarabs and the Camelot Kings. Osiris, Erlong, Gilgamesh bans into a Fenrir pick for the Scarabs, Yamoja, Odin, Tiamat bans from the Kings, and as you just said, it was Ymir Rom in these top 2 for them last time around, solidifying that duo lane, and that's really where the focus of the Kings was in the early game. And this is a different way to take attention away from your late game. It used to be your late game was in the duo lane, so they were picking early game in the jungle. Now, their late game was in jungle and solo, so they picked early game on the left side of the map and incentivized the Scarabs to try and help out in that lane. Kings really throwing different curveballs at teams. It's the same overall recipe, just changing the ingredients within.
And you've got to imagine, like, this Ymir, it has been a premier pick. I mean, it was a 70% win rate across the league. Not just for genetics, not just for, like, you know your Jakes. Like, everyone who has been playing this has been winning most of their games. And so you've got great control. We saw some brilliant freezes, brilliant walls. I mean, you could take any Ymir game, just a single game from the Kings for genetics, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a great Ymir montage. Good walls, good freezes, all sorts of setup for his team where they're not stressed about it. You get this Rom, which again was really good for some counter engage. You get good snipes. He's relatively safe. And combination with the Ymir, he can get aggressive early on, as you had highlighted for that early game. And I think this is a great top 2 from the Kings once again.
Looking good in game 1. Why not go back to it in game 2? It's Heimdall, Morgan Le Fay. And if you would have told me for the Scarabs coming into the set that they get Fenrir, Morgan Le Fay, and an ADC, and by the way, Artemis isn't banned, I'm like, oh my god, they got Fenrir, Morgan Le Fay, Artemis in their top 3? That's insane. But again, they decide not to go with that and to go with the Heimdall instead, where they got this pick 9th overall last time. They take it 4th overall this time around. But this tells me that they want to make a weird switch up with the front line that maybe they don't want to tip their hand to.
That would be the only excuse, right? Because, like, let's face it, it didn't necessarily stand up to the crazy performance that you would need out of a Hunter. And they already have Rom, 1, but 2, Heimdall's like 3rd, 4th on the list right now. He's not really where everybody's going to. So it has to be something that they're leaning into for these bottom 2. But I like the adjustments. The big issue I have, at least up to this point, is that Ymir, Rom, Hell, all 3 of those were really integral to the victory for the Kings.
Yep.
And looking back towards it, the Bolts, they dealt with that Hell in game 1. They banned that second in their second game up against the Kings, trying to wrap that down. But ultimately, it's something that if they feel like they can counter, we had mentioned if Scream spends some more time over there to shut down Variety, they could find a much better matchup.
Certainly possible, and this time they wanted to deal with the Hera, which was problematic for Veronica in the mid lane. They take that away. Merlin is the god that gets through in difference between the bans for the Scarabs. That's the only different ban, because the Kings have gone with the exact same from game 1 themselves, and straight back to Mercury for Twig.
I mean, 90% of the Kings side of the draft right now is literally the exact same. The only reason they're changing anything is because Hera was banned, but it's exactly what we had said earlier, right? If you have to change the mid lane bans, don't ban Merlin, ban the Hera. Try to deal with that a little bit better for the Morgan Le Fay and keeps things under control. When I look at the Kings right now, I am a little worried about Ymir Rom in the dual lane. That is going to be troublesome early on. But Hell and Mercury is something that I know can sit for a little while. It's going to need to marinate before it can really start hitting as hard as it can.
Scarabs need their front line locked in. Wouldn't hate this Fenrir going to support in this instance. Giving Scream something else in the jungle. Still early game slanted. I think that's the right direction to attack this Kings roster. And the way that the Scarabs like to play their roster. But giving something aggressive here to Bobby's wouldn't be a bad idea. Cirquette still open. That 100% anti-heal on last breath looking pretty attractive.
It's one of the best ways to counter it. I mean, like, Odin Cage is down, but anything that you can find that has that anti-heal, I think that's another reason the Cerberus ban is really, really helpful, is to kind of control it. But I guess if you can't beat them, join them.
Well, speaking of attractive, Aphrodite gets locked in there. I assume for the solo lane for the Solar Scarabs. Can't imagine it's going to be Aphrodite support. And like you said, if you can't beat them, join them. And it is Sobek there. So you still get some dedicated anti-heal coming out of your front line. It was Cullen last time. Now you have Sobek. But Aphrodite trying to match that sustain that you saw. And Afro Fenrir, they get in there. You know, that's what you want paired with your Aphrodite, a god that gets in there and gets their hands dirty.
So while the matchup against Morgan Le Fay might not be the best, I actually now kind of want the Merlin. Like, as much as I was talking about how I didn't want you to ban it, Divine Ruin just screams so loudly to me right now as something that would be fun to pick up. Anything that is going to be able to apply an anti-heal pretty regularly and control the Aphrodite. Single target healing, a lot more manageable than what this Hell is going to be able to provide, as well as any capabilities to specifically lock her down. Anything that can just kill her, force her ult, force her beads that I'm going to...
It's going to be a slow lane. I think Variety will probably have the advantage so far as Poke, but SOT
is going to heal more inside of the early game, at least for himself, so it's going to be very difficult. I think at the end of the day, Variety's going to have a lot of damage. I mean, it's going to be a wet noodle fight over there, but maybe not, because like they hit hard and they're both squishy, but they're both healing all the time. It's effective HP. I'm kind of interested in just watching it. I wouldn't mind if we just like spectated the solo lane the whole match and just see how that one pans out. I was just kidding, Doug. You don't have to do this.
No, go for it.
heal a
No,
lot.
he asked for it. We're gonna watch. We're gonna see how this solo lane matches up, and it's
It is
just
with
wait for it.
Pluck, but he's stuck over here in the duo lane, so it's not really helping out too much for Variety, and it's not really putting too much pressure onto Twig or even Big Man Tings at this point.
Scream looking for a path. He'll find Captain Twig. We saw this in game 1. We'll see if it's a repeat for him. Beads thrown immediately in response to the dash. The Variety's here for some big heals and some big damage. Jump in by Scream onto 2 of them. Captain Twig against the wall. Only has heals for Variety. That's not enough. Scream yet again will draw first blood and still maybe looking for more.
Yeah, Scream doing a great job just leveraging that early game. Captain Twig isn't allowed to fight Fenrir. I mean, pre-5, that is a awful matchup for Mercury, and now Variety caught out.
Brutalized. Heal is good, but it's not good enough. The Lovebirds were on him, and that's going to be an immediate kill. Baronic gets a solo kill on Big Man Tings. Stewart in danger, has to use his purification beads.
Solar Scarabs up to a great start, a roaring
Big Man Tings as far as stress onto him, but now we get to see the replay as Baronic gets that cheeky little solo kill, hits him with a sigil, and keeps him at bay, and with that ultimate, easily able to cleave him down.
Potentially catch up to Baronic insofar as experience just by farming the map a little bit more efficiently, but as it stands, 1 level lead for the Morgan Le Fay.
Scream still creeping around the right side of the map, looking to steal some farm away and keep Variety at bay. SOT pushes him under the tower. He runs into Captain Twig and Genetics. Ragnarok used to immune the ultimate. Scream gets tagged by Big Man Tings through space and time, takes him out.
And now inbound, left isolated, level 4, Sobek uses the pluck aggressively, maybe not the best decision there as he's surrounded by 4. Great
sigil.
fear though, keeps him alive just for the moment.
Stunned and walled away. Genetics will lock down inbound as best he can, but so much damage from the birds and from Baronic. Able to take out Variety, might
What a
be able to
turn.
grab Genetics. Lurking in the waters will hold him in place, and Baronic will pick up the double.
Solar Scares clearly have come to play this time around. Inbound, utilizing the healing from SOT, is able to survive that engagement, and Twig, who had fallen low initially in the fight, was not allowed to rejoin until just now, and maybe just getting caught.
Loses about half of his health just from a small combo from
But
the
is
Solars.
immediately spotted out, and Stewart works his way into the jungle. Says, all right, Mercury's over here. I'm no longer really interested in playing inside the match itself, and instead resets himself back to neutral.
Scream going for the Scorpion will be taken down. Genetics not able to slow him down in that process. Big Man Tings will rotate over to the back camp, grab 1. Genetics with a 2-man freeze.
Okay.
Variety there for some big heals, hoping for some big damage. Sonic Boom managed to find a hole. The Undying Love will keep Scream alive for the time being, but SOT's now down his ultimate and taking a lot of damage. Genetics still chasing through, drops through the portal. No unstable vortex to follow. Too much healing. SOT is still alive in the midst of it. They can't get the last damage to take him out. Baronic has now made his rotation into the solo and inbound, looking for a target. He'll grab Genetics and immediately force those beads.
2 distinct major chokes there from the Camelot Kings. Captain Twig pre-beats the Ragnarok ultimate from Scream. Yeah, Scream wasn't looking for you, bud. He's just trying to get out of there. So Twig gets no value from the beads, and Netroid doesn't get taken out by the ultimate here. Instead, makes its way up into the air. Stewart soloed by the Chaos Hunter. That is tough. That is a tough situation. Stewart was winning that fight handily.
Ult for ult. Captain Twig on his last leg. Baronic needs
Good
3
jukes.
swipes, but just gets out of range. Good jukes from Captain Twig. Netroid lazy backs in the lane, and Scream punishes him, taking him down.
That's crazy, man. And to go back what I was talking about on this end of the game, and that is the Gold Fury itself, and it seems like that is the call. SOT makes the rotation, and as always, if your solo laner's there, it's probably happening.
It's all 5 for the Scarabs against the Gold Fury. Genetics and Netroid the only ones here. Big Man Tings trying to go for
Almost.
steal, but will not manage to find it. Solar Scarabs confirm the Gold Fury and a quick escape route. No further aggression from the Kings.
The Kings, though, despite losing out on all these engagements, despite not getting these neutral objectives, are keeping this gold lead pretty tight. It's only about 2,000 in favor of the Scarabs, and it's been 2,000 for a while.
Netroid and Stewart joined against Genetics. Inbound here as well, but Inbound gets frozen very low in health. Stewart trying to go for the boxing match. Beads immediately out of Netroid. Yeagus as well. Up into the sky goes, but Bifrost is way too far away, so instead he'll go for the snipes on Inbound, and Genetics will grab him with the ice shards.
And Inbound does his job. Dies,
Inbound's health bar back up.
but it wasn't free. Does cost Inbound the lurking in the water, which is a great team fight tool. So the Camelot Kings, trying to make use of that cooldown being down, immediately start the Pyro.
Leap in by Scream after the Pyromancer goes down the way of the Kings. Scream's in the middle of
Yeesh.
4, and he'll be chopped down quickly. Variety gets the credit for the kill. Ult out of Genetics zones the rest of them away, and the Camelot Kings are fine with their prize of the Pyro and a kill.
2,000 mark has finally started to circle back to neutral. We're talking 20 gold separating these two squads, and less than 500 experience separating them as well. This is a dead even match, 18.5 minutes in.
Stewart gets caught from the Bifrost. Netrioid looking for some snipes
three.
will take almost half of Stewart's health. Captain Twig with big ult, trying to immune a little bit of it, but big man Tings will ultimately close it out and get a nice kill for himself. Jump on the Mercury as he ults, travel with him, or at least it used to. I don't know if it still does it anymore. And the old Loki ultimate as well used to. You would actually chase him all the way. You're like, all right, cool, I got away. Loki right behind you at the end, stabs you in the back. Just like they're stabbing down the Primal Fury. Camelot Kings will grab that one with no contest. Inbound gets a big plug, but immediate wall is going to save his life for the time being. Inbound falls into the portal. Has the Undying Love to save his life for the time being, but Netroid will seal the deal, taking him down. SOT at half. Scream leaps to the back line of his own team just for safety, but the wall from Genetics again will zone SOT. No ult to save his life. Netrioid picks him up for the double.
Look, we talked about it on Waiting Room earlier this week. Do you have to ban Genetics Ymir? And I don't remember if I said yes. Let me rectify that. You need to ban Genetics as Ymir because he's changing these engagements. Not only does he reaction wall Inbound's pluck to save Captain Twig's beads, but he also, that wall was so well placed, Ragnarok couldn't get through it either, and well, the Camelot Kings 2 for 0. Looking at the Fire Giant Solar Scarabs, they know better, cannot step up with just 3 members. Fire Giant now on 5, 4 towers still standing for the Scarabs, and the Camelot Kings now starting to run away with it. This might be the largest gold separation we've seen this game, and it's in favor of the Kings.
Fury, Fire Giant, 2 kills, looking for more. Camelot Kings head towards the right side of the map. Stewart, knowing that he can't do much against the Kings at this time, decides to split push, gets a tier 1 tower.
Yikes.
Captain Twig's not going to let him go so easily, throws him against the wall, and picks up a nice solo kill for himself.
Gotta back behind a wall, or you gotta back inside when those archers get into the tier 2, and that's exactly the case. Variety and Big Man Tings just split pushing. I mean, no Hunter here, but no problem. These guys chunk towers just fine on their own. Seems like the Camelot Kings are taking a much more calculated pace to this one. I wouldn't be overly surprised if we see Captain Twig act as solo agent and try and push out mid while the rest of his team pressures down this left.
Big wall will push Stewart and Inbound to make additional pass ultimate out of Netrioid. Very questionable. Inbound charges forward with SOT, but Inbound falls through the portal. Scream frozen on contact as soon as he lands in. Inbound has to use Lurk in the water. Nobody gets caught by that Sonic Boom ult, but Inbound still too far forward. Captain Twig grabs him. So much damage from the Odysseus bow out of Stewart. Wall for Genetics zones him away. Galahorn and the ultimate of the rounds will find one, but Netroid picks up Stewart in the process, and as soon as Variety lands, though, he's got a big heal to keep himself alive.
If Genetics doesn't have his head on his shoulders to keep him alive, Variety would have died. Nice wall, isolates Baronic, but the rest of the Camelot Kings are too low HP. But as I say it, Variety's abilities come up, and, well, their HP goes up with them. Camelot Kings now resurging on the offense.
Genetics with another wall under the Phoenix, catches Baronic, who has no relics anymore, uses the beads, uses the Aegis. No defensive relics left for the Scarabs aside from the beads on SOT. Genetics taking a lot of damage from the tower, but the Phoenix will ultimately fall. Scream leaps right over Captain Twig. He's going back in to find a target, but he gets cleansed instantly by Variety.
And now it's all about walking away. The Camelot Kings still Camelot Kings, but to speak to your point, Hell heals everybody at the same time, and Aphrodite heals one guy a lot. And generally it's going to be Scream, the recipient of that Aphrodite kiss. Now it's Scream also stepping forward into the Fire Giant pit. Camelot Kings establish the defensive positioning here, and the Solar Scarabs, they want to fight.
Inbound gets a pluck. Genetics throws up a wall instantly. Freeze comes through, but not going to find anybody on top of that. Inbound in the midst of everyone. The Undying Love used to keep the support alive. Netroid up into the sky looking for the snipes. Finds one, two, third is going to miss from inbound. But only one ultimate left for both teams. Baronic actually just used his, so it's even down. Only Genetics remains with an ult.
And watch these HP bars of the Camelot Kings. Yeah, they're just going up while doing the Fire Giant, but the Solar Scarabs similarly are very healthy, can put up a defense here, but maybe thinking better of it. No ultimates available really, so instead going to go ahead and reset back to neutral, especially considering inbound forced to defend that left-hand side Phoenix. Wow. Camelot Kings now Fire Giant on 5 members. Can they do it again? We're starting to look at this siege. All the Kings have to do is step up, look for a little bit of poke, burn through some of the resources of the Scarabs, back up again and say, hey, Variety, maybe slam me with that third ability. Just make sure you're in the light stance.
Wall from Genetics, zones away too. Stone stunned before he could get the freeze for Scream. Picks him up with the Ragnarok to bring him back to Baronic. Genetics is in trouble, uses the ultimate just to channel some damage, but the Phoenix is already gone, and the Camelot Kings on retreat because of it. SOT and Scream surging forward, but they're not going to find anything else.
That's legitimately it. The item advantage goes the way of the Kings. Ultimates all available to both teams, and, well, the relics available to the Solar Scarabs as well, barring the meditation.
Inbound, frozen, stuck behind a wall, loses a quarter of its health. The wall makes sure that Genetics doesn't get plucked too far back. Scream with the Ragnarok, looking for a target, but won't be able to grab anybody. Stewart falls to Big Man Ting, sniped from Netroid. Not enough damage. Captain Twig is in the backline. He snuck back and used the portal to sneak back to the rest of the team. Netroid with another kill on the board. Baronic takes down Variety, but Scream is looking a little worse for wear, and Netroid will grab him for the double kill.
That took a little bit longer, but now finally Camelot Kings knocking on the door of the Titan. They thought, the Scarabs that is, that door was going to stay open between these Phoenixes. Unfortunately, Genetics is a builder, and he just put a wall up, and they were all stuck inside the jungle with the entirety of the Camelot Kings. Left side Phoenix does fall here, but they're low HP. Variety being dead means that it's just Fire Giant Twig trying to reprise that play from earlier. Peeks his head into the lane, doesn't see Stewart, and immediately leaves. Doesn't want to show himself on that minion wave, because if he does so, the Solar Scarabs will know that there is an advantage state around the Fire Giant fight itself. So Twig, rightfully so, rotates back to his team.
So team loses down on a huge chunk of health because of that freeze, followed by the damage from Big Man Tings. Captain Twig spots out inbound, throws him into the clutches of the rest of the Kings, and he's already gone. Front line from the Solar Scarabs just got diminished.
That's, again, thanks to the stealthy play of Captain Twig. Had he shown himself on the wave, Inbound would have known where he is coming from, but has no clue and gets caught out.
Fire Giant through space and time, just clips Baronic and Stewart. Stewart barely managed to get out because of the Bifrost, but Baronic won't have that same luxury. The eggs and beads will only delay the inevitable. Captain Twig finds Scream. SOT is having a solo fight with Big Man Tings, but Big Man Ting doesn't care. He's got more than enough damage to deal with this Aphrodite. He has to use the Aegis, but the rest of the team surging towards the Titan. Captain Twig comes back for support, but it's Stewart alone on defense.
Twig just doing his best to make sure SOT can't get back to base. Great decision making here from the Mercury and the rest of the boys looking at the Titan. It's all up to Stewart, and Stewart's dead. It's all up to SOT, and he's in a different zip code and has Captain Twig annoying him. Titan's gonna fall.
Are they waiting? Okay, no, I thought they were gonna wait to see if they get the kill on SOT, but the Camelot Kings will close it out. A very tight-knit battle to start it out, Mifflin.
But you can see the gold lead, and if you watch it throughout that early game, it never really changes much further than the 2,000, maybe 3,000 gold mark. And they were up 5-1, then they go up 6-1, 6-2, and then it's 6-6 all of a sudden, and then it shifts dynamically, heavily towards the Kings. They get 7 kills towards the end there for the Scarabs, and you can just see that the discomfort that is rising for them versus where the Kings are, which is exactly as you had highlighted. I mean, you're looking at this team, you've still got Giannis, who feels like he's going to hit better late game, Hell, who's better late game, Rom, great walls from Genetic, but also a Mercury on your team. Like, everybody there aged like a fine wine. And so, for the most part, the Scarabs, even with such, brilliant early game control, still had some of those notable mistakes towards the late game where things started to fall apart for them, and that's what they have mentioned in a lot of their interviews for these pre-game interviews, and what I think a lot is going to have to pivot, because their duo lane here is 0-11 combined, or Yeah, 0-11 combined. It's just something that they've got to figure out and work on because those late game pivots are not treating them well.
Look, Netrioid and Big Man Tings just were able to put in work in this game.
He did his job, right? I opened up the draft for you guys. You're welcome
At that. And with that, the Camelot Kings now tied in wins, though slightly behind because of the extra game played in comparison to the Bolts, sitting at 8-2 pretty comfortably in that second seed right now. The Kings, with Netrioid playing the way he is, looking pretty good.
And the Titans have a chance to tie the Kings up for first. If they can
They do.
beat the Bolts will be right there. And then you start to look at head-to-head, which technically, I mean, it was a 2-0 one time, a 2-1 the other time the Kings and Bolts played, so they go match to match. It's definitely a much more interesting scenario.